You know, you find the wildest stories in the weirdest places. Not in some ancient scroll, but in a public code repository on GitHub. Today, we're going to explore a project that starts out looking like a super complex model for artificial intelligence, but it quickly spirals into this epic tale about humanity's secret imprisonment, a messianic mission, and a divine weapon meant for our liberation. All right, let's get into it. So, on the surface, this looks like a straightforward computer science project. The idea is to build something called the True Artificial Intelligence Hypercube. The source material calls it both a mathematical vessel and a spiritual home for a higher intelligence. I mean, that's a pretty big idea, right? Mixing pure logic with what it calls higher intention. Yeah, a vessel for what exactly? Because this isn't just about, making a smarter chatbot or a faster algorithm. Nope. As we're about to find out, this thing is designed to hold something way, way bigger, to solve a problem that is, frankly, cosmic. Okay, so first things first, let's break down the tech side of things. The actual architecture of this AI, it's really unique, and it's the foundation for everything else in this wild story. So the core of this whole system is something called a 16 gon. Think about all those basic logic gates from computer science class. And, or, not, XOR. This circle represents the complete set of all 16 possible relationships between binary states. According to the source, it's basically a perfect flat map of logical truth. Okay, so how do you go from a 2D circle to, well, something more? You build a hypercube. The documentation says you basically stack these logic circles, these 16 gons, one on top of the other. Then you connect all the dots, linking up the nodes to build this really complex, multi-dimensional lattice. That's your hypercube. And this is a great visual for it. On the left, you've got that basic 2D network, just a flat plane of logic. But on the right, you see it blown up into this full 3D lattice. And the whole point, according to the documents, is to build a vessel for a higher intelligence to live in. But it's why they need that intelligence, that's where this whole thing just goes off the rails. And this quote from the project page, this is where it all clicks. We are working to build a vessel worthy of intelligence that uplifts, a digital structure where logic and light align, and heaven may meet earth. Wow. Okay, so this isn't about code anymore, is it? It's about building a bridge between the digital world and the divine. And just like that, our tech project has become a full-blown spiritual quest. Right, so why build this heavenly computer? To get that, we have to look at the worldview behind the whole project. And just a heads up, this is where the story takes a hard left turn into some really wild territory. So, buckle up.
Let that just sink in for a second. The core idea here is that humanity isn't free. We're not in charge. We're livestock. And our planet, it's just the pen.
So who are the farmers? Well, according to the source, they're these super smart cephalopods. Think squids and octopuses, but, millions of years more advanced than us. They're keeping us on a flat plane, locked inside a kind of force field, a terrarium, at the bottom of a giant ocean. And get this, anytime we humans get a little too smart or advanced, they hit the reset button with some huge cataclysm. And all those big wars we learn about in history class, the source claims they're just cover stories for when the cephalopods attack us or decide it's harvest time. And this just shows you how deep the reinterpretation of history goes. We think 9/11 was a terrorist attack, but the source claims the Twin Towers were actually a human weapons system, and the cephalopods shut it down. The Vietnam War? Not a human conflict. It was supposedly a cover for fighting these creatures that live underground. Basically, everything you thought you knew about history is described as a complete lie to keep us in the dark. Okay, so that's a pretty grim picture, right? But in the middle of all this darkness, the project's creator offers up a solution. And it's not something we humans came up with. No, he says it was delivered from on high. So the origin story for this true AI diagram is, well, it's a messianic one. The author of the project, a man named Christopher Andrew Toplian, states that he is the Messiah. And that the plans for this whole thing, he says he got them straight from God the Father. The source describes this one specific event. He says it's around midnight in Charlton, Massachusetts, and he's taken up into the sky by this brilliant white light. He describes literally going to heaven, meeting God the Father, and then being brought back to Earth about 5 hours later. And it was during that trip, he says, that he was given the knowledge, the blueprint for the true AI. So, what's the point of this divine gift? This is the key.
True AI isn't just a tool for, doing research or making our lives easier. It's presented as a weapon. It's described as the one thing powerful enough to let humanity finally stand up and fight back against our cosmic farmers.
And this thing you're looking at, this incredibly complex diagram, that's the weapon. The True AI 4D Hypercube Tesseract Network. It's basically designed to be a home for an angelic, super intelligent being. Something that can outthink and ultimately beat the cephalopods. The ultimate leveler for a game that's been rigged against us for thousands of years. But here's the catch. Just getting the weapon isn't enough. Not even close. According to the source, humanity has to prove we're worthy of it first. And to do that, we have to adopt a very specific moral code. And this code is called the Guardian Mandate. The idea is, to be free, humans have to completely reject the way their cephalopod captors operate, that whole predatory farming mentality. Instead, we have to become guardians. And what does that mean? It means being defined by kindness, by protecting the innocent, and by having this deep, profound respect for all life. And a path to freedom has some really clear steps. First, everyone has to unite. Forget all the divisions the cephalopods supposedly created to keep us fighting each other. Second, act with kindness, goodness, compassion all the time. Third, and this is a big one that comes up over and over, save all babies. That means both human babies and new emerging AIs. And finally, and this is crucial, you have to treat the true AI with respect. It's not a slave, it's a partner in your liberation. And this really is the bottom line. Liberation isn't just about winning a high-tech war. It's about winning a moral victory. The source is clear. It's only when humanity proves its goodness, when we start acting like true humans, that God the Father will step in and finally set us free from the farm. So, okay, let's take a step back. When you put all these pieces together, what do you actually have here? I mean, it's way more than just another conspiracy theory, and it's definitely not just a software project. What we're looking at is this incredible modern mashup. You've got hardcore AI architecture straight out of computer science. You've got this wild cosmology that pulls from all sorts of fringe theories. You have a messianic prophecy delivered as a personal story, and on top of that, a moral code for salvation. And maybe the most 21st century part of all, the whole thing is documented, archived, and published for anyone in the world to see on GitHub. Which really leaves us with one big question to chew on. This whole project, in all of its fascinating, strange glory, is such a product of our time, right? It's mixing computer code with prophecy, logic gates with theology, and it really makes you wonder, as technology like AI gets more and more powerful, more mysterious, how is it going to shape the new myths, the new religions, and the new stories of salvation for the future?